if you have not heard, 5 women have decided to sue the state of Texas. Now, why is this happening? Because we have to go back and remember the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. That left it back up to the states. Now, Texas already had some laws in place, but they actually have, I would say, probably the most strict abortion laws. Last time I looked, there are 5 women that have been directly impacted by these laws in Texas. They say the language of the law is somewhat vague, according to doctors. And it put these women in incredible, incredible danger. So they have decided to unite and file this lawsuit. Now, this was a part of Meet the Press. This is the danger I was trying to warn you about leaving the rights up to the states when it comes to a woman's right to choose. Let's get into this story.
Welcome back. 5 women alongside 2 OBGYNs are now suing Texas over the state's abortion laws. The lawsuit filed by the Center for Reproductive Rights argues the women were denied necessary and potentially life-saving care because medical professionals throughout the state fear liability under Texas's abortion bans. The lawsuit seeks to clarify the state's law. NBC's Yamisha Alcindor spoke to one of the plaintiffs who says delayed abortion care threatened her life after she was told her baby would not survive.
She said pretty quickly, all in one breath, you're going to lose the baby. She's not going to survive. I thought what they would do is go in and intervene immediately, but she told me that they couldn't because the baby's heart was still beating and I wasn't sick.
Laws in Texas ban doctors from performing abortions except when a medical emergency endangers a person's life or major bodily function. Those who violate the law could face up to life in prison.
Because of the law, I very nearly died. Nothing about this is pro-life.
But John Segal, president of Texas Right to Life, who helped craft the Texas Heartbeat Act, says the law is clear as written and that doctors like Amanda's are misinterpreting it.
Let's get into that in just a second. If I remember correctly with Amanda, again, I want to say this is someone who did not want to have an abortion. She very much wanted to be a mom, but she faced a medical situation to where that was the only option. And this is the thing that I've said before, I don't really need to hear someone's reason as to why they had to have an abortion. That's really none of my damn business, to be honest with you. And I think it's none of other people's business either. But for the people who make the excuse of, no, we got to be pro-life because there are women who abuse this. There are women who are not responsible. And then they just say, I'm just going to go get an abortion. Really none of my business. It's none of my business as to why you choose to have one. But for the people who continue to say things like, well, I'm against it, except in this situation and that situation, still an abortion. I never understood that. For people who say like, you're taking a life, you're taking a life away. If that's what you believe, and it happens under those circumstances that you say are okay, wouldn't that still be taking a life? Make it make sense, people. Make it make sense. But this is what happens when the Supreme Court decided to leave the rights up to the states. And I warn people about this, that some states are going to be more strict than others, and Texas is one of them. Let's go into the law because he's going to explain why he feels the law is not confusing. Now, some of the doctors are saying the law is confusing, and if the doctors don't understand the law, then they're less likely to act. Let's go on.
They are saying they have to delay and wait the days like you're talking about. That is medical malpractice. But if it is uncertain that this child may survive or may not, Texas is saying we don't jump to conclusions.
Doctors are saying the law is not clear, and as a result, I'm going to act on the side of being cautious, and that means that I might have to wait for a woman to get sicker and sicker before I can perform an abortion that I know she needs.
Notice how he said, if the child is not safe. Notice he didn't say anything about whether or not if the woman is not safe. Notice he didn't say anything about that. if the child is not safe, but he didn't say anything about whether or not if the mother is not safe, if the mother's life is at risk. That's just something I noticed. Let's go on.
The wrong conclusion.
Nancy Northup is the president of the Center for Reproductive Rights.
The issue here is not that the doctors are being too cautious. The reality is, without clarification of this Texas law, without a change in the circumstances that are happening today, it is going to come that women are going to die.
In response to the lawsuit, the Texas Attorney General's office said he'll, quote, continue to defend and enforce the laws duly enacted by the Texas legislature. This suit comes as we wait for a ruling by a federal judge in another Texas lawsuit over medication abortion that could pull a common abortion pill off the shelves nationwide. Joining me now is Dr. Bhavik Kumar, a Texas-based abortion provider and co-chair of the Committee to Protect Healthcare's Reproductive Freedom Task Force. Also with me, Liz Sepper, professor of law at the University of Texas. Dr. Kumar, I want to start with you, and thanks to both of you for being here. Can you just react for us to what we have just heard from the plaintiff, Amanda is her name, talking about the fact that she was told her baby would not survive, and yet she couldn't immediately get the care that she says she needed to save her life, and her health was put at risk?
Absolutely. It's very difficult to hear that story. And unfortunately, in Texas, it's a very common story that we hear from people. What we see in Texas is that when politicians decide to tell us how to practice medicine, when they have punishments such as the one in the Texas ban where we could potentially go to jail for life, it becomes very difficult for us to have conversations with our patients to give them the options that they deserve. And they are suffering the consequences of that. And that story is something that I've heard from other patients as well, and it's really, really unfortunate, and it's really avoidable.
Notice he also said it's a common story. So what you're hearing that has happened to these 5 women, this is not an outlier, according to him.
And Liz Sepper, can I have you respond as well to hearing what was really difficult, I think, to learn, that this woman's life was put at risk. She could not get the care that she says she needs. She said that she almost died. She almost didn't survive this.
Yep.
These stories are the tip of the iceberg, and it's because Texas's abortion law is draconian, but it also lacks some clarity. There are provisions that contradict one another. There is an exception for life-saving care that uses terms like serious risk of substantial impairment to a major bodily function without any definitions. These are not medical terms. Physicians just don't know what they mean. When, in good faith, can they act to save someone's life and health?
In this case, Dr. Kumar, obviously Amanda was here to tell her story. That's why she's a plaintiff in this case. But are you learning about cases in which women are not as lucky because they're not getting the care that they need?
Absolutely, and I commend the plaintiffs in this case for coming forward. It takes a lot of bravery to be able to do so, but there are a lot of people that don't have that ability to do so, whether they're experiencing a complication in a wanted pregnancy, a complication in an ectopic pregnancy, or an inability to access care, or if they're having a miscarriage and not just not able to get the care that they need. So these, again, stories are very common in Texas and in other states where abortion is banned, and it's really just another example of politicians interfering in my ability as a physician to provide healthcare to people.
Dr. Kumar, what do you believe the national implications are for what is happening in Texas right now?
Yeah, what happens in Texas doesn't stay in Texas. Right now, there are 18 states that have some form of an abortion ban in play. And what we know is that when we ban abortion, it doesn't stop the need of it. It also affects other care, such as miscarriage care and complications that can happen in pregnancy. So we're really seeing this chilling effect and this chaos effect as people are trying to travel to other states. They're not getting information from their healthcare providers, as we heard from Amanda, and they're left with confusion. They're left with questions and trying to navigate the healthcare system the best that they can. We also know that many people aren't able to access the care that they need. And as we heard, people are suffering in the consequences of that.
And
yeah, this is very important for people to understand. Just because it's happening in Texas doesn't mean it's not going to happen in other states as well. And then there are some states where you got to be careful, too, because they can make it criminal for you to leave the state and have an abortion and then come back. So I know some people will see this and they'll say, well, that's Texas, not my state. Like he said, what happens in Texas doesn't necessarily stay in Texas.
Liz Sepper, how do you see the national implications here, particularly to this idea? Do you worry that it's having a chilling effect on women's health and the ability to treat the range of complications that can arise during a pregnancy?
Yes. So we're seeing doctors who feel that their speech is chilled. They're not even willing to say the A word to their patients or give referral or information. This obviously affects all kinds of care. But we're also hearing stories about oncology, about MRI and the like, where doctors just aren't acting as they usually would because they're concerned that they may be creating risks for fetuses or for potential pregnancies that could subject them to liability under SB 8 or Texas's criminal laws.
Dr. Kumar, I want to talk to you about the medication abortion case out of Texas. And we know that an anti-abortion group that is bringing the suit has argued that it's unsafe and that the approval process was unlawful. Does the science back that up?
Absolutely not. We know that mifepristone, one of the two medications used in a medication abortion, is extremely safe. It's been FDA approved in this country for over 20 years. There have been 5 million people that have used this medication safely. It's a medication that I've provided to thousands of people. I often say when I'm providing that medication that you're probably not going to feel anything different today. You can go home, you can do whatever you need to. There are very few side effects, if any, and it is very safe and effective for people to use. We know that this group that's bringing the lawsuit forward was created right after the Dobbs.
Yeah. So they're trying to stop that as well. That was another thing that's mentioned. There's another thing that's happening in Texas in reference to this that I think is important too. That's probably going to freak you guys out, but
decision, and it seems as if they've cherry picked which court and which judge they would bring this case forward in. And it's really part of this effort to ban abortion. Even with Roe overturned, they're continuing to target anything that people might try to access to have an abortion.
And we know that
this is important, people. Like, for me, it's just, again, like I said before, this type of behavior can spread. And there's another part to this that's even scarier because Texas is also trying to make it so that you can't even Google abortion providers. I kid you not. Now, this actually, it was, who told me about this? Ron? Wasn't it Ron? Yeah, Ron told me about this. This is crazy and this is very scary. All right. Now, this borderlines along with censorship. So at this point, it's not even just about an abortion anymore. Now they're starting to censor what you can search for on the internet. Abortion websites would be blocked in Texas under new bill. The proposal would open the door to punishing everyone from web hosts to domain name providers. You see what's happening here, guys? You see why this is so scary? A new bill in Texas will require internet service providers inside the state to block sites that provide abortion information, as well as making it illegal to host or even provide domain registration for sites that help people in Texas obtain or pay for abortion. Guys, this right here, as well as make it illegal to host or even provide domain registration for sites that help people in Texas obtain or pay for abortions. This is borderline authoritarian behavior. You see what's happening here? They're trying to make it to the point that now you can't even Google it. They're really trying to make it almost virtually impossible for a woman in Texas to find a way for means of an abortion. This is censorship, you guys. They're now in the Google space like this. And this is going to lead to the Matt Taibbi story we're going to get into next. They're now trying to make it into the Google space. So again, one of the things that some people have said to me is like, How many times are people going to talk about the Twitter files? It's not that important. I think censorship is important. I think, government agencies stepping in reference to Facebook, in reference to Twitter and any other platforms, and telling them who they can keep and who they can't keep, and telling them which stories they have to suppress and which stories they have to remove. I think that's a problem. And what I was trying to get across to people back then is that censorship spreads. It doesn't just stay with the Twitter files. Now we have censorship affecting abortion. So it goes on to say here, the bill filed February 23rd by Representative Steve Toth attempts to crush access to services that ship the pregnancy terminating drugs, mifepristone and misoprostol, as well as aid funds that raise money to cover the cost of abortion-related expenses. Under the new bill's rules, it would be unlawful to create, edit, upload, publish, host, maintain, or register a domain name for an internet website, platform, or other interactive computer service that assists or facilitates a person's effort in obtaining an abortion-inducing drug. This is why censorship is a problem. You're right. Terry's right. We really don't have any freedom here. You see, this is a problem. This is a problem. And this goes back to the net neutrality issue. There needs to be some type of regulation here, some type of regulation with big tech. And this idea that we still have like this freedom of speech, is this freedom of speech to you? You just can't. You can't defend it. And by the way, whether you agree with a woman's right to choose or not, this is still censorship. Very terrible. Very terrible. Thomas says Florida just introduced a bill to ban abortions past 6 weeks. Governor said he'll sign it. You know what's dangerous about this? It's not uncommon for a woman not to know that she's even pregnant in those first 6 weeks. That's not uncommon.